then shortest process next, shortest remaining time, and also we've seen the feedback scheduling. So then the next one which we are going to see, which is fair share scheduling. So as the name says, here you can notice a user is assigned a weighting of some sort of whatever the weight is assigned to a particular process. Based on the weight, the process is getting the processor time for the execution. So suppose in the particular user has twice the weight of user B, which means the user A should be able to do twice the work of user B. So that is the simple logic which is given. And the main objective of this fair share scheduler is to monitor usage to give less resources to users who have had more than their fair share. Okay, so we shall see the scheduling with the specific example. Yeah. For that, we need to know what is based on what the priority is taken over here in the fair share scheduling. So we'll make use of some certain formulas. The first line which shows the CPU utilization. So for example, for process J, which belongs to a group K, okay. So the CPU utilization is given at a particular instant of time is given as CPU J I minus 1 by 2. Similarly, you compute the processor utilization. That is the measure of your processor utilization in the group. Okay, what is the utilization of that particular process in the group? Okay, and you calculate the priority of the process. So you calculate the priority for that particular process using this particular formula. So assuming some base priority, what is the base priority? And based on the CPU utilization of that particular process, you compute the priority with some sort of a weighting factor. So the weight is assigned to a particular group for which the process belongs to. Okay, so the weight would be normally in the range of 0 to 1. Okay, it is in the range of 0 to 1. You compute this number you compute. Okay, so based on the number if it is more, which means it has got a lesser priority. The number is less, the priority is more. Okay, so you compute the priority of a particular process which belongs to a group and assign the processor for the utilization. Processor for the execution. So this is the simple strategy is used here, and yeah. So each process is assigned a base priority. The priority of a process drops as the process uses the processor. Please note this. So for example, when I use the processor first time, the priority of that particular process will drop. And as the group to which the process belongs, also drops. So in the case of group utilization, the average is normalized by dividing the weight assigned to the group. So you are normalizing it by dividing the weight. The less its utilization will affect its priority. Okay. So this is to be noted in the fair share scheduling. The less you utilize, which will affect the priority of the process. So let us take an example. It's a random example given over here. So here you can see there are some group. Okay, so we have got 3 processes, and the process belongs to particular group. So we can notice here some random number is given. Initial priority is 60 for all the 3 processes. So assume that all processes are processor bound. There is nothing like the IO. So all processes are processor bound and they are ready to run. They are ready in the list. So you compute the processor utilization. Okay. So the processor utilization is measured as, that is, processor is interrupted 60 times per second. So it is interrupted 60 times per second. You keep interrupting. And during each interrupt, the processor usage field of the current running process is incremented. Okay, please note that the usage, whenever you interrupt, the processor usage field of the running process keeps incrementing. Okay, and simultaneously the corresponding group of the processor. So in every second you recalculate the priority. Let us consider that you begin with process A, and as I said, so the processor keeps incrementing, and since you have incrementing, so when you keep incrementing the processor, the utilization. So let us say there is a change in your priority. There's a change in the priority when you calculate the priority. So for the next iteration, if you look at the priority levels, now the priority level of the process A has increased, let us say. So out of B and C, B is picked up. Okay, so B gets a chance for the execution, and assume that the process A belongs to one group, B and C belongs to next group. There are 2 groups. Group 1 and group 2. So process A belongs to group 1 and process B and C belongs to group 2. So we cannot give a chance for the 2 processes of the same group. So B gets a chance, and please note that whenever B is executing, the group count will change. And at the end of that, whatever the time we have noted, the interrupting time at this end of, so that much, the say the priority of the process B increases, and for the next time count, if you notice here, this is just a random example we have given. So why we have shown here is the group count will change, because even though I am executing the process B, process C, since it belongs to the same, that group count also changes. At the end of this particular time, the next time unit, notice this is having the lesser time, definitely this picks up and start executing, and some random count will increase, and this will increase at the end of each utilization. the priority level will increase, and for the next iteration, you notice comparatively this is smaller, so this picks up. Meanwhile, the group count will change, and for the next iteration, you get process A. What you can notice here is process A gets 50% share. Process A gets 50% share, and process B and C are getting the remaining 50%. Okay, so which means for each group there is a proper share. I mean, the processor is allocated for the execution. Okay. So in this random example, you can see that we have not shown any calculations over here, but the priority of the particular group will calculate, and based on the calculations, the process which is having the less priority will be taken for the execution, which picks up for the execution. Okay, so since a particular process belongs to a group that out of the so many processes in the group, there will be a processor is given for the particular process for the execution. This is how the fair share scheduling is executing. Yeah, so this is about the different types of uniprocessor scheduling. If there are any doubts, you can ask. Any doubts?
No, no doubts.
Okay, so we'll recall the RTX. So we have discussed some of the functions of the real-time executive. Today, let us see, before moving on to the next topic, how the different processes communicate each other, synchronize each other. Okay. So there is another method which is used in the RTX for task switching. So let us see that. Is the code visible to you? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So this is a program given for switching off the task. So for example, a particular task is running. I want to switch from one task to another task. There is an option for changing the priority. I think that function I've already discussed in my initial classes. So you can change the priority of the running process or the other process which is created. So by doing so, it is possible to switch from one task to another task. Okay, let us see that. So let me begin with the main program. So in the main, you can say I have used the messages. So for which I need to initialize the UART. Since I have already discussed the UART and the supporting initialization code, I hope you are familiar with it. So in the main, I don't have nothing because I'm not using any hardware here apart from I'm using just the serial communication, that is a terminal for echoing the message which I transmit. Okay. So I'm using only the UART, and there is a initialization given with the highest priority. As usual, will be a OSS underscore init priority with the 10. So we have done the initialization. Moving on, you have the identification, the task IDs. We have got two tasks. As I've already mentioned so many times that this, the operating system we are using for multitasking or multi-processing, there need to be minimum two tasks. At least two tasks we should have. So I'm giving the ID for the two tasks, and there is a function prototype for the task, that is underscore task for the initialization, task 1 and the task 2. You don't return any parameters, so it is void. So now what we do is, in the task I don't do nothing apart from putting some messages. You see here we've got some messages. Anyway, I'll come to this later, because I have got message 1, message 2 and message 3. Okay, so for the timing you just note that there are 3 messages. So what do we do with these messages? So we are declaring this with some array. So you reserve some array for these messages, and yeah, also in the task we are putting some count. Simply say how many times the same message is displayed. Just to randomly I can have a count plus plus. Okay, so the task 1 I have a count 1, and task 2 I have a count 2. Okay, and one more int variable I'm declaring, which is so that the message, based on the number of characters which I have it, so I need to note that. Then coming to initialization task. So this is just the function for creating the task. So in the initialization function, please note that I have a task 1 created with the priority as 5. And task 2 with the priority as 2. Okay, let me repeat. So task 1 is given with the higher priority than the task 2. So once I start my task execution, definitely task 1 is having higher priority than 2. 2 will not get a chance at all. Right? The task 2 will not get a chance for the execution. Anyway, based on using that particular function, we are making so that the other task also getting a chance for the execution. Yeah, so now once I create these tasks, I'm deleting this function. Fine. So task 1 with the high priority than the task 2. Okay. So this is done in your initialization function. Then we have a task 1. Say while loop. As I mentioned, I just increment the count just randomly. The count will keep incrementing, and here I am putting a message. This is a message 1. You display that message till the null character, but for which, since I'm using the UART for transmitting the message, so till the status register is high, right? So you keep putting the message in the transmit hold register. Means till the whole set of characters are sent for the particular, you keep sending the character which is put in the transmit hold register, and keep sending it till the status register is high. So this you repeat. So you stay in the particular, once you are done with that particular message transmission, you will come out of it and make this I0. Now what we do is, otherwise this repeats, it's an infinite loop. You stay in while one loop forever, so you don't come out of this loop. So what we do is, I'm changing the priority of the task 2. Okay. So once I make this, once that particular message, what is message 1? Task 1 enters, change priority of task 2. This is the message which we are putting, which means I've started the task 1 and I'm asking the task 1 to change the priority of task 2. That is a message put, and here priority, this is my running task. I'm running with the task 1, in under which I am changing the priority of the task 2. So what was the priority of task 2? It was 2. Now I'm forcing the priority of the task 2 as 10. So as soon as I give this statement, since task 2 is provided with the higher priority than the task 1, there is a task switching. It goes to task 2. From here, straight away, there is a context switching, and the task 2 starts executing. And if you notice here, I have a while 1 and increment the count. Then I have a message 2. I'm transmitting the message 2. What is the message 2? Message 2 is task 2 priority increased, and which is running. Okay, I have changed the priority of task 2. That message I am transmitting here. Task 2 message, priority is increased now, and it started running. Okay, that message is transmitted till the end of the message. It is a null character. Then I make it 0. Once I transmit that message, okay, I make the priority of the, so this is the function which we have it in the RTX, OS underscore task underscore priority underscore self, which means I am changing the priority of the myself. I am changing to the original. So I am changing the priority of the task 2, which was given initially. So as soon as I go back to the original priority, which has become lower than the task 1, again there will be a task switching, and it comes back here because there was a context switching here, and I put the message 3 here. So what is message 3? Message 3 is task 2 decreases its priority. Task 1 is now at higher priority. So this is my message 3. Okay, so we are task switching from 2 to 1 back. Since I have given my original priority for the task 2, it is lower than the task 1, comes back and send this message. Fine, and it will repeat. What you do is, while running, you change the priority, then it goes on, because it's a forever loop, and it goes on. And in your initialization function, UART, so you have a power control that is enabling the peripheral, and TXT and RXT of the specific UART which you are using, and for baud rate, that is line control register, that is formatting of your data. Then you load the number in the DLL and DLN for the specific baud rate, then latch the baud rate, then FIFO control register and enable the interrupts. So this is a standard function which we use it for the UART. Fine. So yeah, that's it. So this is your program for task switching by changing the priority. By changing the priority, you switch from running task to another task. Okay. So for simplicity, I have put only 2 tasks, so you can have more also. Have you understood? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, any clarifications? Yeah?
No, ma'am, no clarification.
Okay. So I've run this. And also the programs whichever I have explained, I have uploaded in the Teams. You can have a look of it. Okay? Hello?
Okay, ma'am.
Because you may ask to write a program for the different, I mean because this I have given for some specific scheduling like cooperative, then round robin scheduling, preemptive scheduling, and some sort of simple examples which I have discussed in the class. So that program I have shared in the Teams. Yeah, this is changing priority. So our hardware is 1768. I mean, it is running very fast because you can just see that it is showing the priority change, and yeah. Can you see the message which is displayed?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Yeah. So now we're back with the RTX. So we have seen the different types of the inter-process communication. In the sense, I started with the event flags, event registers, through which how you will be able to.
मिनट में तो एग्जाम देना पड़ जाएगा तो रोना पड़ जाएगा.
Pardon?
एक बार दो ना, एक बार देखे ना,
क्या?
देखे ना क्या पढ़ा रही है वो तो देखने दो. तो भाई देख लो तुम भी पढ़ो. ब्लैंक स्क्रीन है.
अरे तो भाई डेस्कटॉप खोल के बैठी है, पता नहीं क्या कर रही है.
Hello. Somebody said something. Hello. So we have seen the inter-process communication with the event registers and different types of scheduling which are used in your RTX, like round robin, preemptive, and cooperative scheduling we have seen. And also in the point of view of operating systems, in a single process system, what are the different types of scheduling used? So that also we've seen. Okay, so I hope you have some understanding of the types of schedulings. Okay, there are many, but some of them, the algorithm, which is, I mean, based on what there is a task switching takes place. Okay, so you switch from one task to another task. So based on certain policies. See, in first come first service, what is the priority? And similarly, in shortest process, next, what is the, I mean, the different types of scheduling, there could be preemptive or non-preemptive. Preemptive in the sense, whenever a process is running, you can stop if based on certain logic. For example, in preemptive scheduling, if it is waiting for a event register, or if it is waiting for a semaphore, or in your the shortest remaining time, you just check whether the time remaining is less than the running process. Definitely you can preempt it and picks up the next process. So you just check what is the priority levels, and based on the priority levels you switch from one task to another task. Okay, so that is about the scheduling. And we also need to know what are the concurrency activities, and is how you control the parallelism. Okay. So there's some statement given, that is designing correct routines for controlling concurrent activities. Okay, which is proved to be one of the difficult aspects of systems programming. Okay, so there are some ad hoc techniques used by programmers of early multi-programming and real-time systems, and were always vulnerable to subtle programming errors whose effects could be observed only when certain relatively rare sequence of actions are occurred. Okay. The errors are particularly difficult to locate since the precise conditions under which they appear are very hard to reproduce. Okay. So this is a statement given by Computer Science and Engineering Research Study in 1980 itself. Okay. So let us see what is concurrency. So the main theme of operating system design is concerned with the management of process and threads. You know what is process and the threads? Okay. So multi-programming, that is, you manage multiple processes within a uni-processor system. You have only single processor. How you assign or how you execute the multiple process. Okay, that is managing of multiple process within a uni-processor system, and multi-processing, that is management of multiple process within the multiple processor. There are multiple processor. How you will be able to manage the multiple process, multiprocessor. Then finally, distributed processing, the management of multiple process executing on a multiple distributed computer system. Okay, so that is also, these are all the different challenges. So there are certain design issues for addressing the concurrency, which includes how you communicate between the different processes, communication among processes, sharing and competing for system resources. So each process is in need of any resources. It could be anything like memory or any IOs. How the various resources are handled. I mean, how you manage the resources. Okay, when the process compete each other for the specific. Then synchronization of the activities of multiple processes. You need to have some sort of a synchronization for the various activities. And finally, allocation of processor time to the process. Okay, so you need to address all these in the parallelism or the concurrent execution. Okay, you try to. So normally we say that in uniprocessor system, which I have stressed in the beginning itself, there is nothing like parallel working in a single processor system because only one process can run at a time. Fine. So there is some sort of a interleaving takes place. There is some sort of a interleaving. You switch from one process to. Hello, class is going on. I'll call you later. Yeah. So there is a what do you call interleaving between the multiple process, so that the user will not get a feel that there is a switching. It behaves as if the processor is dedicated to the specific process. And yeah, the concurrency which arises in different context, that is multiple applications. So whenever you have multi-programming which allow processing time to be dynamically shared among the number of active applications, as I just mentioned. Okay, you just switch between the different processes because it is done in the runtime. You just keep on change. Okay, so whenever you have, you go with multi-programming, that is processor time is randomly given to the different process or the different programs. Then you have structured applications, which is an extension of the principles of modular design and structured programming. So that is, in some applications which can be effectively programmed as a set of concurrent processes. You can program it as a set of, there is a number of concurrent processes. And another way of visualizing is your operating system structure. So the operating system themselves, which are implemented as a set of process or the threads. Okay, so maybe this could be a higher level of computer systems. Computer science. Anyway, so some of the key terms we need to understand with respect to concurrency. Anyway, so a few of them I'll explain later because maybe you'll understand later instead of dictating the definition now. Maybe some of the simple one which we are going to address, those things I'll give. Maybe this critical section and all are used in your resource handling, but maybe it's quite simple. Say resource is nothing but your memory code. So what is critical section? Critical section is section of a code within a process. Please note, a code within a process which requires access to shared resources and which must be executed by another process in the corresponding section of the code. For example, you have some memory area which is a code which need to be used by two or more than two processes. Okay. That section of the code you call it as a critical section. Okay. So I want to execute that code, but which must be executed while another process is in the corresponding section of the code. I mean, I cannot use it because that is used by the process which is another process is running and using it, let us say. So such a section you call it, I mean such piece of code you call it as a critical section. Then deadlock, a situation in which two or more processes are unable to proceed. Anyway, this I will have a separate lecture. Okay, so whenever you try to access a particular resource and more than one process is waiting for the same, but none can do anything. It's because of which the system will halt. Okay, that is, you call it as a deadlock. Something like your traffic junction. And if it is not properly monitored, maybe nobody is able to move and it is something like there is a deadlock. And live lock, a situation in which try to understand the difference between deadlock and the live lock, a situation in which two or more processes continuously change their states. They keep changing their states in response to changes in the other process or the processes. Okay, so they keep changing, and because of which there is no useful work is done. Okay, so that you call it as a live lock. Yeah, the mutual exclusion, which is important, which we study, like semaphore and mutex. The mutual exclusion or the mutex installed. That is the requirement that when one process is in the critical section, okay, a process which is in the critical section. Critical section is the one which is a shared section, shared code by two or more. So a process which is in the critical section that access shared resources, during which no other process may be in the critical section can access any of these shared resources. Means I have the key, till I release the key, no other process can make use of it. Okay, that is called as a mutual exclusion. Then you have a race condition, a situation in which multiple threads or process read and write a shared data item, and the final results depends on the relative timing of their execution. Okay, so the process keep reading and writing, and some process may, I mean, I want to read some value, and what is the rate at which you do this? Okay, so based on which the results you get. Okay, so that is called as a race condition. Then starvation, I think this I have told, a situation in which a runnable process is overlooked indefinitely by the scheduler, and I mean, for example, in your shortest process next algorithm, if a shorter process, for example, if it keeps entering into the queue shorter than the one which is running, then the longer process which is available in the ready list may not get a chance at all. So that you call it as a starvation. You call it as a starvation. So which is a runnable process is overlooked indefinitely, and that may not be chosen for your scheduler for processor for the execution. Okay, that is starvation. And finally, the atomic operation. So this is something like, anyway, we are not going to address this, but it is a function or action implemented as a sequence of one or more instructions that appears to be indivisible, which means that is no other process can see an intermediate state or interrupt the operation. That is, the sequence of instructions is guaranteed to execute as a group or not to execute at all, having no visible effect on the system state. So, atomicity, which guarantees isolation from the concurrent process, a process which needs to have some isolation. Okay, so that is atomic operation. Anyway, we are not going to address this. But what do you mean by atomic operation as a definition? You can have a look on this. But we will be noting critical section, deadlock, mutual exclusion, race condition, and the starvation. Maybe live lock, we can have it something like I keep change the priority of the running process. Okay, so because of which maybe you don't do anything, you keep change the priority of the, something like you call it as a live lock. So let us see the principle of concurrency. So principle of concurrency in a single processor multi-programming system. In a single processor multi-programming system, so you have some standard function here. Okay, so you have a character in, you get some character, and that you send to the character out and print, input that character. Okay, so you have a simple sequential code wherein I have some simple. Okay, so get the character and put the character. So in single process system, process P1, for example, invokes this echo procedure. Suppose this is my procedure, the procedure echo, and is interrupted immediately after, say, get character. Suppose a process is running. If it is interrupted after executing the statement, okay, then it returns its value and stores it in the particular variable. For example, at this point, the recently entered character could be X, which is stored in your variable name. Okay. So since it is interrupted, now process P2 is activated. Suppose P2 invokes the same procedure, which runs to conclusion inputting and then displaying a single character Y on the screen. Okay. So now process P1 is resumed. P1 has resumed. By this time, the value X has been overwritten in the variable and which is lost because in the process P2, I have loaded some other variable like Y, okay, which was loaded in the particular variable using the same procedure. But the process 1 was interrupted in between. I do not know what was the variable loaded by the process 2. Okay, so instead of getting the variable which I wanted, but I conclude with the variable which was loaded by the process 2. Okay, because process P1 want to display X, but it displays Y without my knowledge. This is what happens, which means we need to have some sort of a communication among the multiple process, so that what we want we can retain or we can keep it. You get it? Hello? Please respond. Yeah. Now, suppose process P1 invokes the same procedure and is interrupted immediately after the conclusion of your input function. Suppose the recently loaded character is X, which is loaded in the variable character in, and the process P2 is activated because I have interrupted after putting this, and which invokes the same procedure. However, P1 is still inside the echo procedure. Although currently suspended, P2 is blocked from entering the procedure. So what we do is, since P1 is using this echo procedure, even though it is suspended, you block P2 to use this procedure. So therefore P2 is suspended, waiting for the availability of the echo procedure. This is what you can do it. So because initially P1 has taken the procedure, and even though it is interrupted, and if some other process try to access that procedure, you make it blocked. You can keep it suspended, waiting for the availability of the procedure. The later time, process P1 resumed and completes execution of that and puts the character, the original. Now this exits echo. Okay, whenever you exit this echo, it removes the block on using the procedure. Okay, then you can invoke it. So which means only one process is made to run at a time. Okay, here's some sort of you say I'm using this, I'm holding it, even though I'm doing some other business, but I don't want to give it to you till I release it. This is sort of a this is in which you can have agreement. Okay, so that you can avoid putting some error in the execution. Yeah, so multiprocessor environment. So earlier I have shown with the uniprocessor environment. So this is multiprocessor environment. In multiprocessor environment, suppose process P1 and P2 both are executing each on a separate processor. Each on a separate processor. Please note, we have a separate processor. Both process invoke the particular procedure. Then the following events occur. That is, events on the same line takes place in parallel. Say process P1 and process P2. But this is on the processor 1. Maybe this is on the processor 2. I'm running this on the different process. So maybe I use this function and Then after maybe somewhere here it is process 2 is trying to make use of this function, and we can see that how the common procedure is used by the different process in the different processor. So process P1 and P2 are executing each on a separate processor. P1 invokes the echo procedure. While P1 is inside the echo procedure, P2 invokes echo because P1 is still inside the echo procedure. Whether P1 is suspended or executing, P2 is blocked from entering the procedure. So therefore, P2 is suspended awaiting the availability of the echo procedure. This is what you can do it. So whichever the process entered into the shared one, you put as indication that, yeah, right, look, I'm using this right now, you cannot. So some sort of a message or some sort of a indication or the signal need to be passed on to other process, even though it is in the different processor, if they are sharing the common procedure. Okay. So later time, when the process completes the execution, exits the procedure, and immediately upon exit, P2 is resumed and begins to execute this function. Okay. So this is how you handle the common resources or the handling the common variables or any common procedures. Okay. So what are the different ways of having interactions? Different types of interactions, process interactions. It could be processes unaware of each other. They don't know. There are different processes. They do not know each other. Okay. So these are independent processes that are not intended to work together. The best example of this situation is the multi-programming of a multiple independent process. So you have a multiple independent process. So this can be either batch jobs or interactive sessions or a mixture. And they are not working together. So, but the operating system needs to be concerned about competition for the resources. So two independent applications may both want to access the same disk or a file or a printer. So your operating system must regulate this. So the interaction the second would be the processes indirectly aware of each other. They will not be directly know, but indirectly. So processes that are not necessarily aware of each other by their respective processes. IDs. So I don't know each other by my IDs, but they share access to some object, some buffers. But in such process, execute cooperation in sharing the common object. They try to cooperate each other because they are not directly involved, directly knowing each other, but through some means. I mean, they are directly involved with some object through which they know each other. Okay, that is situation of having concurrency. I mean, the interactions. Third case could be they know each other directly. They are able to communicate with each other by their process ID and are designed to work jointly or on some activity. So again, such process exhibit cooperation. So such process also exhibit cooperation. Okay. So now Let us see the degree of awareness. Degree of awareness. So we have seen that process unaware of each other, process indirectly aware of each other, process directly aware of each other. There are three categories. That is the degree of awareness. There are three types. The relationship among them in this type, they are unaware of each other. There will be a competition. So they try to compete each other. They compete for the usage or using the resources. So what is the influence that one process has on the other in such cases? That is, results of one process independent of the action of others. And also the timing of process may be affected. It may affect the timing of the process. And what are the various control problems? You have a mutual exclusions, deadlocks, and the starvation. You can come out with this. And second category, here they don't know directly, but through some object they know each other. Here you can have a cooperation by sharing. So here also the results of one process may depend on the information obtained from others. But in the previous case they are independent, but the results may be depending upon the what information you get from the other. And timing also may be affected. Here the control problems could be mutual exclusion, deadlock, starvation, and you have data coherence. We'll see what is that later, data coherence. A third category, they know each other directly. It is quite simple because we know each other, and we can handle it very smooth. In this case, we can have a good interaction by cooperation, by communications. So the results of one process may depend on the information obtained from the others. Timing of process may be affected the same, but the control problems could be deadlock and starvation. Okay, so we can have, even though there is a communication, we can get a deadlock because of some consumable resources. Okay. Yeah. So there are certain common concurrency mechanisms. Today I just give the definition of semaphore. Maybe others will see later. And also let us see how the semaphore is used in the RTX, maybe in the next class. Fine. So what is a semaphore? It is an integer value used for signaling among processes. You use some integer value for giving a signal whenever you share the resources. Only 3 operations may be performed on a semaphore. They are initialize, decrement, and increment. So decrement operation may result in the blocking of the process, and increment operation may result in the unblocking of a process, also known as you have a counting semaphore, or you have a binary semaphore. So in a binary semaphore, you have either 0 or 1. So 0 means the semaphore is not available, 1 means semaphore is available. Look at the semaphore, if it is 1, immediately you catch hold of it, and whoever has a semaphore, you can use the resources. And the only thing is, the other process can unlock it. That is possible in the semaphore. But in binary semaphore, you have only 0 and available, not available. That's it. Only two states. You have the semaphore available and not available. That's it. Okay. There are only available, not available. So these are the two states you have it in the binary semaphore. But in the counting semaphore, you have some token counts. Maybe I'll discuss the state diagram in the next. So you may have some set of tokens and you can issue the tokens as long as there are so many ones, and even if you keep issuing the tokens, the token count will be decremented, and when the token count becomes 0, there are not available any tokens to issue. So there are no available resources, and the process cannot make use of the resources through semaphore. Whoever have got the semaphore token, they can avail the resources. Okay, this is what you do in the semaphores. These are the kernel. Semaphore is a kernel object through which you can handle the concurrency. You can handle the concurrency for sharing any resources. Okay, sharing any resources. So the mutex is similar to binary semaphore. The difference between the two is that here in mutex you have some blocked and unblocked, in the sense whichever the process has got the key to use, which makes blocking for the rest. So currently it is using the particular process, any function. Okay, so whichever the process has got key can avail the resource, any function, and during which the rest of the process cannot use the particular function or the resource. Okay, so in the mutex you have a lock and unlock. Okay, you lock it. If you have a key, you lock it, and you yourself need to release okay. Maybe I have, we are done with the event flags. So this we already finished, which is a event register used in the synchronization mechanism, which can associate the different event with a flag. In RTX, we have a event flag. There are 16 flag bits, and you can make use of AND or the OR function. Means there are 16 bits in the AND function. Whichever event bit are set, all need to be tested in the AND. Means you need to set all, then only you can proceed further. In OR, if the event flags are used in the register of more than one, then at least one need to be set. Okay, so then only you can continue with the execution. So that event register, we've seen the event flags. The particular thread is blocked until all the required bits are set in the AND, or until at least one of the bits is set, that is in the OR. Okay, so event flags we already done. We are going to see the semaphore, mutex, probably the mailbox. Okay, yeah. So these the kernel objects and the way in which synchronize or the communicate. So we will see with respect to RTX and the theory behind it. Any clarifications?
No, ma'am, it's clear.
Yeah. So we'll I'll stop here. Maybe after 5 minutes or so, I've scheduled one quiz. One more thing. There are some doubt clearance classes are there. If you want to attend that, please inform me. Otherwise, I simply have to go and wait for you people. So please inform me in advance. Do you need? Yeah. Hello. Pardon? Hello. You say anything? So I'll leave.
Okay, ma'am. If you have any requests for
Yeah, you please inform
doubt
me.
clearing class, we'll let you know, ma'am.
Yeah. You can post a message. In that case, depending upon that time slot, I'll go to the class. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah. So far, any doubts in the lecture today's? Anything?
No, ma'am.
Yeah, now.
No.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. There's a quiz. Please attend that.
Okay, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.